Welcome to the Ascend Growth AI podcast, where we mix smart growth moves with a little AI magic. I'm Teresa. Let's dive in. For today's guest, we have Jenny Sutter, franchise consultant with FranNet. She has spent nearly 25 years in the franchise world, both on the corporate side supporting brands, and now as a consultant helping clients find the right franchise fit. She's passionate about guiding people through big career transitions, especially those moving from corporate life into business ownership. So, Jenny, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So let's have you start by sharing your journey with us.
Yeah, so just like your recap, my corporate career was with franchises. I jumped out of college, went into marketing roles. So I helped support a couple different franchises through being the head of a marketing department was my last role. I myself actually was at a point in my career where I was ready for a change. The corporate world had served me well, but I was just ready for a little bit more freedom and flexibility. My kids were young. I wanted to be able to go to their little Halloween parades or school activities, and I was unable to do that with my corporate job. I was traveling a lot. So I actually myself jumped ship and looked towards business ownership and got super lost. So if you go online and you Google best franchises for me, you'll come up with a lot of answers that won't always lead you to the right direction. So I went down a lot of weird rabbit holes trying to figure out and navigate that. Luckily, I stumbled across a franchise consultant just like me, and she really helped me to prioritize what my goals were so that I could understand what types of franchises would better suit me. It just so happens, it turns out that a franchise consultant was one of the opportunities she presented in front of me. And so here I am today. I never thought I would be doing this in my life. I've never done consulting. I had always been on the strategic side of marketing. And now I am helping people figure out what the next move in life is.
That's fantastic. I definitely went down that rabbit hole that you were talking about, looking up all these lists, and I just didn't even realize how many franchises there were out there. So it's definitely beneficial to have a franchise coach. So for those our audience who may not know, what does FranNet do?
Yeah, so FranNet is a franchising consulting group. You can think of us like a franchise broker. A lot of times that's the easier way for people to kind of correlate what we do. I like to think of myself more like a matchmaker, matching people with the franchises because not every franchise is for every person and not every person is for every franchise. So my role is to really help and take folks through a process of guiding them to build a business model and then come back to them with franchise opportunities that can make the most sense. We need to make sure that they're in the area that they're looking for within the investment range. So I do some front end process with my clients to really dig into what the opportunities are. So we start with an assessment. I have everyone do the assessment. It hones in on motivations and value sets of business. It'll level up with your leadership style and or communication style. So it kind of sets the tone for me to help communicate and me understand what is driving my client. From there, we then would go through that and then really sit down and dig into the details so that I can understand what their goals are 5 years from now versus 20 years from now. Those probably look very different, and I want to understand what their goals are at that point. I take all that information and I come back with some options. However many options make the most sense, usually not too many. Too many is just too much. So we start somewhere with some different options that, fit check a lot of their boxes, I'll say. And then I don't go away from there. I stick around, I make the right introduction to the right people. I help them with understanding what their resources need to be, such as funding resources, if they need an attorney. So I'm there to help provide resources, questions that they should be asking, things they need to consider when they're doing this research. I'm there to kind of hold their hand through the research process, even if that means I help them decide this is not a good idea because it is not for everyone. It should not be for everyone. You want to make sure that if you're going to take this big of a step in your life, that it is the right fit and a good thing that you can tolerate. So, I'd help them get all the way to the finish line, whatever that finish line looks like, whether the finish line is, look, this isn't for me, I want to keep a corporate job, or whether the finish line is, hey, I found the right franchise for me.
And so I guess for you to know right? Where to how to pair that means you also know a lot of the other franchisors out there, right?
Yeah, I mean, the truth of the matter is there's like anywhere between 3,000 to 5,000 franchises out there. There's good ones, there's bad ones, there's ugly ones. There's those that are brand new, there's those that have been around for a long time. And so there's a lot of options out there. I do not work with every single franchise organization. I would never be able to understand all of them. FranNet being a network of franchises. So we work with franchises that we have pre-selected or they have selected that they want to work with us to help them with their growth. But more than anything, we pre-vetted them. We will speak to their leadership team. We want to understand their growth strategy, because if that franchise is not ready to grow, if I'm sending someone to them and they don't have all the systems in place for rapid growth, I don't want to be sending anyone to them. So we vet their systems and their growth strategy. We talk to existing franchise owners. So we vet the franchise organizations that we work with. We work with about 300 in any given time, sometimes more, sometimes less, depends on the availability. So there's lots to choose from, lots of different industries within that 300. And quite frankly, we turn more away every year than we bring into our system because, like I said, there's those bad ones and ugly ones, and it doesn't mean they can't turn good. It just means maybe they're just not ready. So we want to make sure that a franchise system is ready for growth and has really great systems in place.
That's good. So when someone comes to you, I mean, at least you already have that very vetted network, and no matter who they choose, there's probably no right or wrong, but they'll be successful.
Well, they have the opportunity for success, right? There's no guarantees in anything, but we want to make sure that we've eliminated some of the unknowns there, some of the friction points that are red flags that you should be looking for when you're looking at a franchise. We want to eliminate those on the front end versus if someone could talk to any given franchise and they don't know necessarily what to look for. So we try to make sure that we're working with the right ones by making sure they don't have a bunch of red flags.
That makes sense. And what geographic area do you cover?
So I work across the country. I live in the Tampa Bay area in Florida. So naturally, a lot of my clientele is in Florida, in the Tampa Bay area. However, I have several clients in Georgia right now. I've had clients in California. I've had clients in Arkansas, the Northeast. So I work with people all over the country to help them. And if I feel like I'm not the right fit for them, either geographically or personality wise, the good news is FranNet is I have fellow colleagues that we're a franchise. And so I have franchisees out there that if I feel like they could be better suited with someone else, I would refer them over to them. And sometimes that's the best opportunity for both parties.
Yeah, no, that's really nice. And how many franchisees are there within FranNet?
Within FranNet, I think we have just under 100 right now and growing because we are in a big push for franchise growth across the country for franchisees, people that will do just like I do, but have the resources to do it. We've aligned ourselves with those franchisors. There's a team that does that. I don't have to figure that out. There's a CRM system. I don't have to figure that out. So it's been great being part of a franchise as well as being a franchise consultant.
Yeah, no, that's really nice. Now, I'm assuming you've worked with a lot of people who jump from the corporate world into entrepreneurship, right? What is the biggest mindset shift that they need to make?
Not getting a paycheck every other week. That's probably the biggest thing is, you have to be prepared that business ownership is a long-term gain, not a short-term one. So you want to make sure that you're prepared financially to withstand some short-term investment that you're going to have to continue to put into the business so that long term you're setting yourself up for success, you're building wealth. So the hardest part really is just the money part generally, and just the mind shift from, oh wait, I don't have to be told what to do, it's now all on me, which is a great feeling at the same time as being a stressful feeling too. So owning a business, your stress doesn't go away. It's just a much better kind of stress.
Yeah, that's true. Do you see a lot of people then change their mind after, they've kind of tested it out, or not tested out, but kind of did some interviews and now they're like, oh, never mind, I'll go back? Or like, what's the percentage you see moving away or staying?
I will tell you that probably only 10% of the people that I start the process with will end up moving forward. because either I have vetted them out on the front end. Like my goal is to help people realize really quickly if this is a good opportunity for them or not. Sometimes we realize it early on. Maybe they don't have realistic expectations is usually the reason. They want to exchange their six-figure salary within 6 months. And can it be done? Yeah, maybe with the right business, but I want to know that business too, so I can do it. I vet people out on the front end, and then once they start talking to different franchise organizations and it becomes real, sometimes they do get really cold feet and realize I have a good thing going on with my job. And this is just more suitable to me. And I'm happy to have had, help them figure that out because otherwise they would be into something that they probably would never be happy with.
Right. And in a lot of debt. So it's good to vet them out early. Very interesting. 10%. How about AI? Is FranNet or do you use AI?
I use a little bit of AI when I'm looking at opportunities for my clients, not because the AI is going to tell me which is a good fit for them necessarily, that I think there's a big human involvement to that, but it can kind of take some of those characteristics that I mentioned. I use that as like, hey, this is just another data point for me. So I would say AI is working with a lot of the marketing groups that I work with in order for me to find people. A lot of them are using AI to do kind of a birds of a feather flock together, like a match fit to what kinds of people would be a good client of mine. So that's where AI is really kind of shifting in. I think a lot of people are using AI to help them find a franchise, and I applaud them for that. But I do think I might be biased, but I think there's a little bit of a human element that may come into that as well. People like me will know what's available in the marketplace because not every franchise is available everywhere. So that's always kind of the mystery part.
That's true. I've definitely run into that where I thought I wanted to do a franchise and they said there's no territories. And I definitely need the human element because you're essentially choosing a family to join, right? And there's no way you could choose a family just by AI alone. So, what's working well for you in FranNet right now? And what are you proud of?
It's the same thing over and over and over again. I'm proud that I can help people figure out what their next step is. It helps them with the tools and the resources. So many people I work with are just stumped. They don't know where to go. They're stuck in the mud, right? Like they're trying to go, but then they just like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or 1 step forward, 2 steps back, depending on who they are. So I'm very proud that I'm able to help people in general figure out what their future could or should be.
That's life changing. So that you're really having an impact on people's lives. On the flip side, what's been frustrating?
People. We're humans, right? And so sometimes I'll be working with people who, a couple of aspects of human behavior, right? The most frustrating to me is ghosting. I'll be working with people and they'll be talking to franchise organizations, and all of a sudden, poof, they've just disappeared out of nowhere in the middle of the process or at the beginning. It could happen anywhere. And it's so interesting to me. It's just a strange human behavior that's become more accepted, I suppose, because the ghosting part is the part that I almost get my feelings hurt. But it's just human behavior. People sometimes don't want to tell people no. So that has been frustrating. I think also, again, the human behavior aspect of things. I work with people who think they know everything. They think I am more of a hindrance to them than I am a help. And for that purpose, I probably shouldn't be working with them. So if I feel like that's how they're feeling, I generally will excuse myself.
Hopefully, the ghosting doesn't happen too often, though.
Not too often, but it's been happening more and more as time has gone on. Since the beginning of the time, since I've been doing this to now, it happens more and more often. Luckily, it's usually at the beginning stages, right? I've only had like one phone call with people and they're like excited and all of a sudden they're crickets. It's usually when it happens, but every now and then I've formulated good relationships with someone and they just disappear.
But to your point, a lot of people are afraid to say no, and it's just easier for them to
Afraid to say
ignore
no,
it.
afraid to hurt people's feelings.
Not realizing that's actually hurting your feelings when they don't show up, right? So, yeah, that's too bad. For you as a your own business owner, what metrics do you typically look for on a monthly, daily, weekly basis?
Metrics for me, and I come from a marketing background, right? So that's been my life, since I graduated from college, is measuring, and it's all based on customers, clients, everything. So metrics for me are how many people I can get on the phone or a Zoom with on a daily, weekly, monthly, annual basis, right? So, how many people can I engage with in order to educate them on what it is that I do? So if I can speak with somebody, then that's my first metric. From there, my metrics are going to be how many people fill out that assessment that I sent over. A lot of people fall off there. They don't want to take the time to do it. And fine, so be it. If they don't want to take the time to follow my process, they probably wouldn't be a good franchise owner anyway. So, filling out the assessment, taking the time to meet with me and go through kind of the whole consultative process. So I look at that metric and then how many people I introduce to franchisors. And then from there, my next metric is how many people am I getting to the finish line of moving forward in a business.
Where do you want to be 6 to 12 months from now?
Oh, 6 to 12 months. I love doing what I'm doing. I don't foresee a change in doing this. This has provided me lots of flexibility to spend the quality time with my kids. They're both heavily in sports. And so I love what I'm doing 6 to 12 months. I don't know what your next question is going to be, but if it's what am I going to be doing 10 years from now, it will not be this. I hope I'm doing some sort of give back to charity work or volunteering, something along those lines. Not because I hate what I'm doing, but it's still work either way you look at it.
Right. I mean, it's nice to see that you have that flexibility, especially with at this point of your kids' lives. I mean, it's a good example of why owning your own business is a good decision.
Yeah. I build my own day, and different businesses can allow for more of that than others, but you're the business owner. As the business owner, you can figure out what your hours look like and where you need to build in flexibility and where you need to build in for the business. So it's up to you. But yeah, owning a business, I'm not having to answer to my boss anymore about needing to be at a meeting at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, that's nice. And FranNet doesn't put any sort of quotas or anything like that. Like they're there for guidance. You can set your own goals.
Set my own goals. So it's, we have people who far supersede the amount of people because they're getting out there and they're really finding people. And I am of the sort where I'm like, look, I did this for quality time with my family. If I work with 10, 12, 20 people to get them into a franchise every year, I'm totally satisfied with that. I don't need to have a bunch of people that I'm pushing through the process. I like to have them take their time and allow me to take my time with my life.
That's fantastic. I mean, that's how you get work-life balance, which is really hard to get.
That was actually when I was going through this process, that was what I discovered that I hadn't actually been able to write down. Like I hadn't pulled that out of my brain that I needed a better work-life balance. So that was my number one reason for figuring out that this was the greatest opportunity for me.
If you were to go back and tell your younger self to do something differently, what would that be?
I love that question. I think the pathway that led me here really did me justice. So I don't know that I would do anything differently except for probably not take myself so serious. Some of the things that I stressed about over time, which I know, again, human behavior, but I would probably just, if I could tell my younger self, hey, it's fine, it'll work out. You're a smart person, you are a driven person, everything's going to be fine. Because you always have those points in your career where you're like, I don't know what's going on with life. So career-wise, I would say that I really paved a really good pathway for myself. It really helped with what I'm doing now, but I would say more the psychological side.
What are tips you would give to those who are thinking about doing their own business one day and maybe even leaving the corporate world to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I would first and foremost sit down and, like I said, I build a business model for people. And what that consists of is really diving into, my goals. Where short term, long term, personally, professionally, financially, and writing all of those things out. So you need to understand what's your investment range, right? Like you can't come to the table and go, I don't know, I'll know it when I find the business. No, you have a lifestyle that you have to live. So really understand what you're prepared for and make sure your family is on board. You're not a one-man show no matter how much you want it to be. So if your family is not supportive, that's going to be a problem. So making sure all those things that you have some sense of all of that is going to be the first step that they should be thinking of.
Have you seen a lot of cases like that where the family wasn't on board or maybe caught off guard with?
I've had cases where the husband or wife, whichever one, it was like, oh, I'll tell my wife later once I found the right one. And I'm like, that's not going to work. even know that you're talking to someone like me. Like, where are you with this? Well, I don't want to get them all nervous about stuff. And I'm like, no, get them nervous. This is something to be nervous about. So yeah, I've definitely had people who just hadn't had the conversation with their spouse and looked at it as a family unit. And so I have definitely put the brakes on things. If they don't want to get their spouse involved, they don't have to be full involved every single little bitty step of the way. But I need to understand, and I ask the question each and every time, how does your husband feel about this? How does your wife feel about this? Because they are going to be part of the business, whether they are planning to or not.
Wow. That's really interesting. If people want to get in touch with you, where can they find you?
FranNet.com is one way you can search for consultants and search for my name, Jenny Sutter. So that's one way to get a hold of me. I don't mind anyone emailing me, texting me, calling me. So my email is jsutter, S as in Sam, UTTER, at frannet.com. That's two N's in FranNet. And then my telephone number, 727-278-6094. Again, reach out, whatever makes the easiest sense. I know some people like texting, some like calling, some like emailing or stalking me on LinkedIn. That's all fine.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today. It was great learning from your experience. And, it's very inspirational how you made the jump and you're glowing, right? You have a great work-life balance and you seem really happy. So that's really encouraging to see.
Well, I appreciate you inviting me on here. It's been fun. I always love telling my story and introducing to people to maybe things they should be thinking of. So I really appreciate you doing the podcast.
Of course. Thank you. And that's a wrap for today's episode. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you got value, share it, tag us, and don't forget to hit subscribe. Catch you next time on the Ascend Growth AI podcast.